So today we're taking a look at the MSI Stealth 16 Studio. MSI was kind enough to send this out and we're partnering on this video. Look, this is a very interesting laptop, okay? Because not only is it geared towards creators, but it's also a good option for gamers. It kind of combines the best of both worlds in a thin and light chassis. It's a 16-inch notebook, but there is a 14-inch version of this if you want something even smaller. Now, from a design standpoint, I think it looks great. It's very simple, it's clean, it's very, very thin. The entire chassis is made out of a magnesium alloy. There's two different color options to choose from. There's a white version or this version here, which is called the Star Blue. I like the fact they went with something a bit different. Most laptops are either going black or white, but this guy is blue, and I think that gives it its own unique look. The chassis is actually very rigid. When I press down on the top, it doesn't go in too much. It's very clean with only the MSI logo at the top middle. It doesn't light up. There's no RGB here, but you do have some RGB at the back. This little mirrored stripe has the Stealth wording in the middle, and this lights up in RGB, which I think looks very, very cool. It's a fairly light laptop. Like, it's actually lighter than a MacBook Pro 16. It only weighs 1.99 kilograms, so it's a good option if you decide to travel a lot and want a bigger display. Tons of ports to choose from. You have your 2.5 gigabit Ethernet jack on the left-hand side with an HDMI 2.1 port. You have a micro SD card slot, and of course you have a USB Type-C. This one connects directly to your GPU. This is not Thunderbolt 4, but you do have a Thunderbolt 4 port on the right-hand side, along with a combo audio jack, a USB-A port, and then this here is your power connector. Now the power brick is a 240 watt power brick that'll add an extra pound to a pound and a half to the overall carry, but it's still a very light laptop to work with. Now, just like with most laptops, you can easily open it up with one hand. You can put the display all the way back 180 degrees. The hinge is actually pretty tight. There's a little bit of wobble when you open it, but it snaps back pretty quickly. In fact, I feel very confident with this hinge that it will be good in the long term. The keyboard layout is nice. You do have a tiny numpad on the right-hand side. They were able to do this by making the keys of the numpad smaller than the main keys on the keyboard. I think this is a good way of appeasing people who want a numpad, but not really annoying the others that don't care to have one. The keys themselves feel fantastic to type on. They obviously have a shallower travel distance because this is a thinner laptop, but there is a nice response to them. They still have a very nice chiclet clicky feel to them that I feel like it's great for productivity, but also good enough for gaming. The actual keys are per key RGB. They do have a partnership with SteelSeries to do that, and obviously you can customize the colors to be anything you want. The touchpad is nice and big, lots of space to move around. It is glass and it feels fantastic to use. You do have a fingerprint scanner on the right-hand side, but it also has an IR sensor at the top if you want to use Windows Hello facial recognition. Right now you're looking at the front-facing camera from the MSI Stealth Studio 16. You guys let me know how it looks. I think it looks pretty good based on what I'm seeing. And more importantly, let me know how the microphones sound. Now the cool thing is if you go with the 16-inch version, you get 6 speakers instead of 4 like you would on the 14-inch version of this laptop. They're upward facing over here, and then of course you have speakers on the side and then a couple on the bottom. Now my only gripe about this laptop is the display. I'm totally cool with it being 1920 by 1200 Full HD Plus. I like the fact that it has a high refresh rate of 144 Hz. It's 16 by 10, so it's a little bit better for productivity. My only problem is that the color gamut is pretty poor on this display. Like if you're a designer or someone editing photos or any sort of content creator, you're gonna want a better color gamut to work with your footage. It just looks a bit dull on this display. Like it's okay for gaming or watching movies, but I wouldn't wanna trust this display to do any sort of design work. Now don't get me wrong, it's still color accurate, it's just the color gamut is fairly low. My suggestion to you is to look at their QHD Plus or 4K options. Those two other panels have a much better color gamut, and I feel like they're better alternatives if you're a content creator. So this unit comes with an Intel i7-13620H CPU, 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. You have an RTX 4060 that runs at 105 watts, a 16-inch display, and a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. Look, this CPU and GPU combo runs exactly where it should. I've tested this combo on other laptops and the performance is exactly where it should be. If you're a content creator, a designer, a 3D artist, then you're gonna enjoy this laptop. In fact, I edited this entire video using DaVinci Resolve on this laptop. Timeline scrolling was smooth, and the render times were nice and fast. Now, if you're using this for gaming as well, everything ran perfectly at 1920 by 1200. Like the 4060 is more than capable of handling that resolution. Like my go-to titles are Overwatch, Apex Legends, and Fortnite, and all three of those games are obviously going to run beautifully on this computer. In fact, even if you hook up a QHD display to this, if you want to play something at a higher resolution, the 4060 is going to handle most titles just fine. Just more of demanding titles it might have trouble with, but then you can always put it back down to 1920 by 1200. Fan noise is good depending on what profile you leave it on. If you leave it on extreme performance and you leave the fans on auto, it gets to about 54 decibels. But if you turn on cooler boost, which basically just maxes out the fans, then obviously fan noise is going to go up to 58. If you want more of a quiet experience, like 40 and lower, I would drop it down to balanced or silent mode. I would use these two profiles if you need a little bit of performance, but you don't want crazy fan noise, like if you're in class, for example. But heat management on this laptop is actually really good. The keyboard deck never got too hot, and the average CPU temps always stayed below 90. And even looking at the average core clock speeds, they stayed exactly where they should be for an Intel CPU. So looking at the internals, I don't see a vapor chamber cooler, but we do have 5 copper heat pipes running back and forth, and it's obviously doing the job to keep the CPU and GPU cool. You have a swappable Wi-Fi card. This one is Wi-Fi 6E. 2 slots for storage drives. One is obviously populated, but you have a second empty slot over here that you could put a second one into. Right under here, you have your RAM slots. This is upgradable to 64, but right now I have 32. Battery, massive, 99 watt-hour battery, but I only got about 5 hours and 12 minutes using my PC Mark Modern Office test before needing to charge. So here's the thing, I think MSI did a great job with the Stealth Studio. It's a fantastic looking laptop, it's nice and light, they didn't really sacrifice any performance, there's tons of I/O, they even flipped the RJ45 port, so it makes getting the cable in easier. Lots of speakers to utilize, a great keyboard, and a big display. My only suggestion is if you're buying this laptop and you're a content creator, get the version with the QHD Plus display instead, because the color gamut on this guy is a bit too low if you need the best fidelity. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. If you're interested in picking it up, there'll be a link in the description. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.